Hello and welcome to the CSN3M Mindset Monday podcast. I'm Andrew Wade with Case Specific Nutrition. On this channel, we focus on the 3M's: mindsets, myth busting, and mentoring, all as they pertain to health and nutrition. This podcast is brought to you by the OptiLife Academy, our very own do-it-yourself wellness course. Be sure to check out the free trial at optilifeacademy.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. You can use code Andrew at checkout for 10% off. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing day 31. This is a term or a phrase that I coined when I'm chatting with clients who are in what I'd call the finish line mindset when they first meet with me. So they come into the office and they want to do a whole 30 or a 30-day carb reset or a 21-day fix, or they're planning on giving up something that they really love and enjoy, like chocolate or alcohol, for Lent, or they want to do some sort of cleanse or water fast or whatever it is. And these are questions that come to our doorstep at Case Specific Nutrition all the time, and we're always very excited to help navigate it. And one of the things I like to basically use as sort of that catchphrase, or that initial point of thinking and reflection, is what's the plan for day 31, right? Because what happens is, when we are feeling like we want to make a change, or we're feeling motivated to make some change, we rarely fully understand what change we're actually trying to make. And a lot of times these short-term focus points are meant to be, they're meant to feel extreme, and we also do get kind of a dopamine spike from it. It gives us a little bit of this invigoration of, like, when we challenge ourselves and then we step up to the challenge, it makes us feel accomplished, and that kind of gives our brain all sorts of boosts and motives, particularly in the form of dopamine, which is kind of our reward hormone, so to speak, our neurotransmitter in the brain. But what ends up happening is, a lot of times with these, we do something hyper-focused, hyper-rigid for a short period of time. And because there's a finish line to it, because it's 21 days or it's 30 days, we just think about it, we live in the moment, and then we just push ourselves through it. We don't learn anything along the way that allows us to be more sustainable. And so what ends up happening is, you get to that finish line, that day 30, or the end of Lent, or the day 21, or whatever, the last day of the smoothie cleanse that got Googled and found online from some random group. And because of how extreme it was, it feels like a finish line where you're so relieved to be done, and you get this big exhale. Well, what's going to happen there, right? What's day 31 going to be? And is that really useful to you, right? Is 30 days of hyper-rigid focus useful? And the answer is, it depends, right? For most people, the answer is no. For most people, that hyper-rigid only serves to burn them out mentally and further detach them from actual health, which is to say, it creates this dichotomy in the brain where I'm either not caring at all about what I do and just living life, or I'm so hyper-focused and dialed in that I'm exhausted by it. And neither of those really define health for most people. Usually health is somewhere in between, where there's some awareness and some good intentions, but there's also enjoyment and involvement in things that are atypical or exceptions to sort of our normal routine. And so what I would encourage anybody to do is really have a long-term plan, or have a long-term view. And this is really where having a partner, what I'd call a mindset partner setup, can be really helpful. And I think that's what we end up doing here, within our company, is people come in with the desire to make a change, and we first seek to understand what that change is, and then why there's a desire to change it, and better obviously educate and make sure there's legitimate reason for the change. And then once we're clear in that why, and then we start to develop the how. The goal is that we're developing habits that, yes, we can focus on little things and practice little things and be aware of certain things in the short term, but they're things that aren't going to exhaust us so that we give up on it within weeks, right? It's meant to be gradual, incremental changes. And I will say openly, for those that do come in and are insistent upon doing some sort of intense focus. I know a lot of clients that I work with, they do observe Lent, and they'd like to use it as an opportunity, which it can actually be a very good one. But it's one of my favorite conversations is, what's going to happen on the other side of it, because there's kind of two ways it plays out, right? Say you give up alcohol, whether it's you give up alcohol for Lent, or whether it's you have what you call a dry month. The entire point of that, it's really not the accomplishment. That's that 30 days or that Lent, that's not meant to be the accomplishment. That's meant to be the reset. It's meant to be a learning opportunity. Just like a couple weeks back, we talked about how tracking can be useful, but most people just track inevitably, right? They just track for 1,000 days and don't learn anything, and they think that's the health action. When in reality, tracking is an opportunity that's meant to be short-term to learn and observe. And so if we're going to give up alcohol for a month or give up alcohol for Lent, the hope is that during that time, it's a long enough period that you can not have the alcohol, start to notice how you feel and how different it is, live through a couple of events that might make you, that you might have used alcohol in the past for, and now all of a sudden you're navigating them alcohol free, which gives you some insights as to, do you need to drink as much as you normally do? Can you have fun without alcohol? Why would you rely on it, or why were you relying on it, in the first place in these circumstances? And the hope is that by the end of that period of time, you have a better understanding of why you did drink the way you did. You have a better understanding of the events that are truly, still enjoyable and, sort of worth the alcohol consumption, or where alcohol consumption makes sense. And then also you're more in tune with where there was alcohol in your life that there didn't need to be. And hopefully through a 30 or a Lent, a 40 day period, you're also able to find alternatives and other outlets you do instead, where you go out with a group of friends and you realize that you don't really even need to drink with them. You can just laugh and have fun. And it's not that you can't drink, but it's that you may not need to, and you've always overly relied on it without realizing there was no need to rely on it in the first place. And so that's what day 31 is. Day 31 is the thought of, what is this short-term action? What is the point of it? And then what am I going to do with it afterwards? And I've seen people go both ways. I've seen people have a dry month and then celebrate on a Friday night with a massive amount of alcohol. And we can already, I hope, hear how that dichotomy is probably not useful. And if anything, you just spent 30 days feeling restricted, only to feel completely liberated, which that makes the party seem more fun. But if we're going to do that, we might as well just hold our breath for a minute and then take a big fresh breath of air. And it's like, well, I mean, sure, that breath when you feel desperate feels great, but couldn't you have just been breathing in the appropriate amount the entire time? So the hope is that instead of crossing that quote unquote finish line, we're instead using that day 31 as sort of a reflection point of looking back and going, wow, this month I saw a lot of times where I would have drank and didn't need to. I saw a lot of times where I would have enjoyed to have a beverage. And I think I'm going to be better stated and better prepared to utilize it as a part of my life in less fashion. And I've seen this happen with people in how they approach desserts, or how they approach, snack foods or going out to eat. And alcohol is a very common one. And I've found over the years, those who set a finish line date end up doing exactly what we'd expect, crossing the finish line, mentally feeling exhausted, where those who use these short periods of time as not a challenge, but instead a learning phase, and seek to understand and use it as a time to reflect on self and habits and how you navigate society, it allows you to then insert better in. And I've seen a lot of people that come back with the alcohol side of things as an example and go, I'd really realized that I really just enjoy it when I'm with people and when it's special occasions. I don't know that I'm going to, have my evening cocktail by myself anymore. Or, when it comes to desserts, I really, really like certain desserts. Like I've found I really enjoy certain things, but I'm kind of picky about those things. And so I think I'm going to just really focus on enjoying those things when they're available. And you can hear the moderation in that comment, right? You can hear the balance in those comments. And also the removal of the guilt and the shame and the pressure, and the replacement with a sound understanding of self and a sound understanding of why. And so to all of you out there that have done or plan to do your 30-day carb focuses or 30-day diets or 21-day fixes or whatever time frames have been set, seek to do that not as a challenge, but instead perhaps modify it and seek to do it as an opportunity to reflect and better understand self. And more importantly, the most important part of that whole thing is what you walk away from it having learned. If you go through it and all you've done is, ran out of breath figuratively, then we really wasted our time. We really wasted our energy. We really used willpower for no good reason. The entire point is to learn. And I will tell you that for those of you who aren't familiar with the Whole 30, the Whole 30 is a pretty famous book and sort of, strategy of trying to basically reset the diet, reset digestion, reset the body. And that's kind of the point of it. Most people don't do it that way. They use it as sort of a diet initiative. But when you actually understand what it's trying to accomplish, the goal of it really is to give someone a 30-day plan to see how they feel, to see how their body changes, to see, it's really a chance to learn about self. And for those of you who have heard of the 30-day carb reset, that's through the paleo side of the world with Rob Wolf. It's the same thing. A 30-day carb reset is meant to be, the goal of it isn't to cut carbs. The goal of it is to understand what foods digest well, what foods make you feel bloated, what foods make you feel sluggish. It's meant to be an understanding. A lot of these are meant to be short-term periods where we learn about ourselves. And then most importantly though, on day 31 or whatever day is set, the goal is to then take that knowledge and apply it in a way that's more sustainable, so that instead of creating a 30-day finish line, we walk away with an understanding of one or two things that allow us to implement them for good, so that we're no longer setting finish lines, but instead truly changing behaviors based on a better understanding of self. I encourage anybody that's on one of those types of journeys to have a mindset partner, to have someone that you set up time to work through things with, particularly someone that you can talk with about what did you learn, right? And when I work with elimination diets with digestive clients, the FODMAP diet as an example, it's a very common digestive diet for those that have really bad digestive issues, and it's very similar to the paleo diet, but what's interesting about it is they aren't really they're not, socially considered the same thing. And it's really because of the stigma or the understanding of what they're for. The FODMAP diet, the goal of it is very clear. It's a short-term elimination to remove triggering foods that can affect the body negatively, and then a reinsertion of those foods to better understand what bothers and what is tolerated, so that a person has more confidence navigating food for their own comfort. And in many ways, the paleo diet originally was supposed to be that, but instead it has become this extreme, hyper-focused, short-term hold your breath, which I know the author of and the founder of that would actually be somewhat frustrated with that if you've read any of his work. But the point there is that we want to recognize that our short-term plans can be extremely valuable, but if we're not careful in understanding what we're trying to get out of those short-term plans, we can be led astray in some way. So I encourage you to ask the important question of what you're seeking to learn if you're going to step into one of these scenarios. And then more importantly, I'd encourage you to equip yourself with a partner in it, someone who's knowledgeable and understands what is to be expected from one of those types of events, so that you can talk with them and better understand the body, and then more importantly, develop a more sustainable plan going forward. I hope this has been a helpful mindset and reflection on your day 31. I'd like to thank you again for listening. Please subscribe to our channel, share on your favorite social media, and tag a friend or loved one. If you didn't hear that, that is my dog Apollo coming in to sign off with me. He wants you to make sure you hashtag spread the health. For more case-specific nutrition content, you can check us out on social media at Case Specific Nutrition, and you can check out our website, casespecificnutrition.com. We will be back next week with another CSN3M Mindset Monday.